Hey guys, and welcome to the Extreme Rules review show. And what a strange show. I gotta say right off the top, this was a very weird show. Not all bad, just weird. Had some bright spots, some low spots, some confusing spots, some very quiet spots. So we're gonna go over all of them and much more right after this. Guys, go check out the Midwest Marks Wrestling Podcast. They review all content AEW and some WWE. The Midwest Marks Podcast releases several shows a week, reviewing AEW Dynamite, Rampage, and recapping the need to know on Dark/Elevation. You can find them wherever podcasts are, and new episodes released within 12 hours of shows airing to provide you, the listener, with the best knowledge and insight on all things elite. So check out the Midwest Marks Wrestling Podcast.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my honor. You're gonna acknowledge me.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Extreme Rules review show here on the WWE Podcast. What a strange pay-per-view that was. Very just strange from start to finish. It was frustrating. It was fun. It was boring. It was confusing. It really ran the gamut in terms of emotions. And when I rolled it all together, I'm not going to tell you to shine it up and turn it sideways, but rather tell you that when I roll it all up, I still feel disappointed. It still feels like a disappointing pay-per-view, and one that I am glad I did not attend in person. So we're going to get to that full review in just 1 second. First, I want to give a couple of shout-outs. Number one, we got a new patron. He'll go under the alias of The Crisis. I won't reveal his real name, but thank you so much for joining us here on Patreon. I had a blast with you and the others during the chat on Discord during the pay-per-view, giving our thoughts in real time, and you guys are always a blast. DJ Kuzmo, everybody else, of course, Amanda, everybody is just so much fun. Of course, Randy the patron, don't want to forget you, and it's just such a fun time there, and thank you so much for joining us there, and thank you to The Crisis, who has just joined us over there on the Patreon family, and also a shout out to the Botch Guy. We noticed we are not doing a Botch Guy collaboration tonight. He had other obligations, but no big deal. This is not exactly a pay-per-view that was one that many of us will rewatch in awe. I mean, some of you may rewatch just to see what the hell went on and just try to figure things out. But if your intention of rewatching the pay-per-view is because you are so enamored with it, I would love to figure out how that number of people, I probably could count them on one or two hands. So that being said, shout out to the Botch Guy. We'll catch you next time at the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, which I'm going to have to remind myself many times over the coming few weeks that this is on a Thursday and not on a Sunday or even a Saturday. This is on a freaking Thursday, which is bizarro world. It's going to throw me off, and I'm going to talk about, this Sunday, and then you guys will have to correct me, but it's Thursday. That's the pay-per-view in October. So Crown Jewel, here we come. We also got, again, a big return that happened on the pay-per-view in Sasha Banks. What we didn't get, and I actually thought we would, was Brock Lesnar. That was a bit disappointing that we didn't get him at least at the end to F5 Roman and stand there, which is what my prediction was with Ashley. And, I will say that I was almost all right in my picks for last night. Ashley, I believe, ran the table. I decided to choose Alexa Bliss to win the Raw Women's Championship, and I was sadly mistaken. I guess she didn't apply her Alka-Seltzer correctly to foam her mouth or whatever she was trying to do with Lily. We're going to get to that, don't worry. But, guys, this is just a really strange pay-per-view. I don't know really what to make of it. And maybe it's because I'm so tired. That's not helping either. The clarity of my brain is not there. But maybe I'll have some additional thoughts, more clarifying thoughts on the Raw review that's coming up Tuesday. Tomorrow, Anthony and I are covering the What If. So, I'm going to be recording, sitting in my chair from now through Wednesday. So I got another 4 shows to cover. That's cool. You guys get a ton of audio, and I'm looking forward to it as well. So let's just dive right into Extreme Rules and just start with the match that opened the show, which was the kickoff match. And I had a feeling this was going to be the kickoff match, and that's Liv Morgan versus Carmella. It was nice to see Liv Morgan change up her look a little bit. She seems a little bit more, I don't want to say cleaned up, but I don't know what the deal is. Just a little bit more of a I guess professional look. I don't know how to put it, but I liked it. It was different. She wasn't just the same old Liv Morgan, and she ended up coming away with the victory, and she should have. And I think at least she got a pay-per-view match. You could argue, well, it's the kickoff show. Fine. She didn't get a main event or a pay-per-view proper match. Fine. But she still was on the show in a one-on-one competition, which doesn't happen often for Liv. And those that are supporters of Liv Morgan should look at this and come away at least with a little glimmer of hope that they might be able to do something with her. And the crowd was behind her, albeit they had the fresh part of the crowd. And we're going to get into the crowd too in just a minute too, which I was really disappointed in Columbus. I mean, I was tweeting about them all night, more than about the pay-per-view itself. But more on that in a second. Liv Morgan defeats Carmella, and the most beautiful, self-proclaimed beautiful woman in WWE. Does it get any more superficial? And I don't mean that in a complimentary way, like the heels just being superficial. I mean in a heel depth chart. That is surface level. That's not going anywhere. It's not going to resonate with anybody. It's not going to get her actual heat. And really nobody cares now about Carmella because she only cares about her looks, which is what every single female heel typically does, outside of maybe like Shayna Baszler. Like that's just part of and one of the elements of a good heel character. It's not the only trait that a heel character should have is they are so concerned about their looks, and it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite trait about Carmella. Let's just say that. And I'm a big Carmella supporter. I think that she did a good job. People forget she was SmackDown Women's Champion twice. She went on a nice run there. She came back as some kind of egotistical, classy woman that had a chauffeur and had a, what do they call Reginald? I can't remember the name of it, but I thought that they were going to have some momentum going with her, and they just stopped it dead. And now she's just losing perennially, or rather weekly. So Liv Morgan gets the victory. That's the important part, and take that with what you will. All right, let's move on here and talk about the 6-man tag team match that came out of nowhere. It was like an RKO. The New Day defeats Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles, and Omos in this impromptu 6-man tag team match. I think WWE felt they weren't giving enough of a card to fill it out. This was a last-minute addition, and yes, there were some big names in here. And yes, this match was fine. I didn't have any issues with this match, albeit to say that Bobby Lashley is really getting the shaft right now. He is the scapegoat, while they spent many, many, many months protecting him, making him look unbeatable. He is now the guy that you're going to look to in a match and say, oh, well, Bobby's there to take the pin. It's unbelievable how quickly they have turned on the Bobby Lashley character. That's not to say they're going to bury him or put him in the mid-card or forget about him, but rather when they look at the pecking order, when they look at their chart of talent and say, hey, who's our number 1 guy and number 2 guy and number 3 guy, Bobby Lashley is no longer in that conversation of top 2. He might be in the top 5, but rather he has officially moved down in the pecking order of WWE talent importance. And yes, we do know that tomorrow night on Raw, or tonight on Raw, depending on when you're listening to this, we are going to get a Big E and Bobby Lashley WWE Championship match kicking off the show. So now, guys, we not only have just completely thrown in the towel, WWE has, and apparently a lot of fans have, of caring about the fact that championship matches should not be on TV, at least in a regular capacity. Now we are also having those titles change hands somewhat regularly when they're defended on free TV. And now we're opening shows with the most important and most, in terms of depth, lineage. The championship that has the most lineage in WWE, that's going to be kicking off the show. I mean, it's it's bizarre. That also tells you that Big E, or rather Bobby Lashley, has next to zero chance of winning that championship. If not zero, maybe less than zero, if there is a number that exists. And so that is, unfortunately, if you're a Bobby Lashley fan, really the sign that he has no chance of winning that championship. So apparently the WWE Championship isn't even worthy of a main event of Raw, which tells you that they probably have a Brock Lesnar segment for tomorrow night if Brock comes to Raw and if Roman comes to Raw. Hell, I mean, I've given up on them caring about explanation. There's 1 week till the draft or less than that. So you know what? Who the hell cares at this point, right? It's just screw it. If they want to bring people on with no explanation, there's only one show left. Have at it. Be my guest. Knock yourself out. Because I can't imagine another main event right now that would supersede a WWE Championship match. So, I mean, you could also get a false finish. We've seen that before, where there's a false finish or a DQ, and they say, we're going to finish this up later tonight, meaning the main event, right? So they could do a two-parter without telling you it's a two-parter. So, but I wouldn't get too excited about Bobby Lashley regaining that championship either way, no matter how it goes. So that's what I think about that. But yeah, Bobby Lashley ends up getting the pinfall here, or taking the pinfall rather, and he's furious at Big E, and he says, a big old curse word that somebody on our Discord server, I can't remember who it was, might have been Randy, might have been Crisis, I'm not sure, but somebody pointed out that when Bobby Lashley cusses, it feels like a child saying, saying something he shouldn't for the first time. That's exactly what it sounds like for Bobby. It doesn't sound right. He's just saying it because he can say it. He got permission to say it instead of actually feeling it. It was weird. But the BS word has been used many times now over the last several months. I guess because they do now. But yeah, so also I want to make a comment about the Spanish announce team that got crossed over in the audio with the English speaking announce team. That's inexcusable. I mean, and this isn't the thing is, the reason I say it's inexcusable is not because I don't understand technical issues happen. Technical issues happen all the time, even to the biggest companies who have the biggest software and the highest paid people. It's just a part of life. Something's going to go wrong. But rather the fact that it's a constant problem with Peacock, you add that to the fact that they have a terrible search menu for wrestling content, and they don't have chapters for things you want to look for. You roll all that up too, as I roll a lot of things up tonight, and they have just really undermined a lot of the goodwill with fans, and the fans are getting very frustrated with Peacock very quickly, and Peacock was trending on Twitter. When I saw Peacock trending on Twitter, I said, oh boy, and some of the things were hilarious. Some of the memes were just perfect. So perfect. Go check it out. Go check out the hashtag Peacock. There are some great memes coming out for Peacock. Definitely worth your time. But yeah, that was frustrating for a while. It was going in and going out and crossing over, and people were like, what the hell's going on? And Pat McAfee even, I think he made some kind of sly comment about that later in the show. It's just unexcusable though. I mean, for the consistency of problems. The last time I think the stream just stopped flat out working during SummerSlam. They've had sound issues before. It's been a rough experience with Peacock, and we're all looming for the days here in the United States for the WWE Network just through the WWE app. Remember those days? I'm old enough to remember that. So that was just, it set the trend and the tone, rather. It set the tone for the show of that just bizarre issue, because the rest of the show was bizarre. So let's get into it. After that match that was pulled out of nowhere, and I'm fine with it. It was a very, very good match. Really no issues, and Bobby takes the fall. But let's get into the real deal here, and that is the Usos versus the Street Profits for the Smackdown Tag Team Championship. Man, can these two teams go at it or what? You can guarantee yourself this is not the last time that these two are going to go at it. I feel as if these two teams are going to be what the Usos and the New Day were for many years. on again, off again rivals. And I'm fine with that. That's not a complaint. As much as I despise the New Day, and you guys know I do, and if you think I'm backtracking on that, you've got another thing coming. I think that they have great chemistry together. In the ring, there's never a problem. That's never been the issue for me. So seeing these two teams was a joy. Montez Ford always steals the spotlight. He is clearly the star. It's not even close. He's going to be a breakout star whenever this team dissolves, presumably not till next year at the earliest. I don't see them breaking up Street Profits for a while. They've got a lot of momentum behind them, and this was just a flat out good match. The only downside, though, I will say, for at least the opening of the show, is the fact that you have Big E opening the show, and you hear the first thing out of the pay-per-view is, "Oh, Cleveland!" It's the absolute worst way you could open a show for me. You could open a house show like that. It is the last sound I'd want to hear if I just purchased a ticket for $100 to hear Big E just be Big E and be wacky, gyrating, bug-eyed Big E with all his movements and gestures that have not gone anywhere, as we're told he's going to have a singles career, and just resorts back and reverts back and regresses back to the New Day. Again, it's just awful. It's just awful. Because I shouldn't say I love, I do respect Big E, and I think he's a hell of a worker. But anyway, that was the match before. But the Usos versus the Street Profits was just so good. As I said, I think the Street Profits match up with the Usos just as well as the New Day did with the Usos. And the Street Profits and Usos have a long way to go in their rivalry, and that's going to be fun, really fun to watch. So the Street Profits lose here. No harm, no foul, because people are still going to get behind Street Profits. I don't think they lost anything in this loss. I think that having the Usos retain was the correct choice to make. Really, when you look up and down this card tonight, you could argue nobody should have lost their championship, and that's indeed exactly what happened. Nobody had a title change, and I was wrong about Alexa. That's really my only blemish, the only fly in the ointment, as they say. But this was, again, great match. You could argue maybe a match of the night candidate. So congratulations to both teams. I want to see more of it. I really do. I'm not being facetious about that. I do. Good job by all there. Then we get Charlotte Flair versus Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's Championship match. This is where I really started to notice the crowd was just not there. It was a little bit evident during some of the other few matches before that. Particularly, some quiet times during the Usos and Street Profits. But this is when I really started to say, what the hell, Cleveland? They were awake for the first maybe 45 minutes of the show, and then everybody simultaneously, brought their pillow, snuggled up next to one another, and started, spooning each other and sucking their thumb and falling asleep, because that's what it essentially felt like. And no disrespect to Cleveland, but man, you guys were silent. And I understand that maybe perhaps you'd say, well, there wasn't a whole lot to cheer for. Well, you know what? Maybe get yourself excited for something to cheer for, because you spent a whole bunch of money. For most of you, it's a work day tomorrow, or today as you're listening to this, right? You're going to a pay-per-view the night before you have to go to work early in the morning. The pay-per-views always go late. Maybe you're bringing your kids, or kids are up late. Make it fun and exciting, right? Instead of sitting on your phone or scrolling through social media, which is actually what a lot of people do when they're at these events. I've seen it, sadly. But anyways, Cleveland really killed me. I even said during the pay-per-view that the Thunderdome sounded louder, that the Performance Center, when COVID first hit, sounded louder than the Columbus crowd did tonight. And I don't know what it was. Yes, they came alive for the main event, but that's the main event. They should. For about 50-60% of the show, they were just uncomfortably quiet. And during this match, the Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss match, I will say this. Alexa Bliss has not had a one-on-one match in a long time in WWE, at least, especially on this setting. And I expected a little bit of ring rust from her. I expected a little bit of maybe a timing issue, whatever, chemistry, getting your feet back about you, because all she's done is sit on a playground and swing with her doll. And Charlotte Flair comes along, who can work with anybody, and you'd figure you're going to have like a really good match with these two. And I got to say, for 75% of this match, it was clunky. It felt like they were disconnected. It didn't feel like there was much of a hook there, that these two were going to suddenly blow it up. And it was not a good first 75% of this match. And I'm not blaming any of the women. Alexa has not had a one-on-one match in quite some time, especially against Charlotte Flair. So that the styles were they kind of clashed a bit. It wasn't the most fluid match you've ever seen. And then, I'm not complaining or racking on any of these women. Like, they are professionals and I appreciate what they do, but this was not good for the first, like I said, 3/4 of the match. But then things started to pick up and the crowd started to get back into it. So they did eventually bring the crowd in towards the end. Alexa Bliss Sunset Powerbomb is just a joy to watch. I love that move. And if that's her finish, cool. Like I'm all for it, rather than Twisted Bliss. And we had Charlotte, of course, get the victory here, defeating Alexa Bliss with natural selection after she threatened to rip up Lily. That distracted Alexa enough to eventually get the boot to the face and then natural selection and goodnight the lights. And Alexa Bliss loses. We then had Charlotte. Here's where things get interesting. Charlotte tears up the doll, the Lily doll. Lily apparently decided not to flicker with the lights or decide not to send Charlotte through a maze of horrors backstage. I don't know. Lily lost her powers, but she was torn up by Charlotte. And the crowd really didn't seem to care. A few people were going, "Oh." And then the crowd hilariously, mockingly chanted, "Thank you, Lily," which was hilarious. Great. I got to give credit where credit's due. As much as I just tore the crowd a new one for not doing and just sitting on their hands most of the show, they did come up with that. That was funny. "Thank you, Lily" was a good one. And so we got that. And then this is where things were just not good at all. And especially confusing. Because you had Alexa Bliss realize what had happened, and she's picking up the pieces of stuffing of Lily and holding her like she can somehow put her back together, right? It felt like a movie scene. I mean, we've seen this before. I just don't know where or how, right? We've seen this before in it's some film or some other kind of medium. But she's picking up the pieces of Lily, and she's tearing up about it, and then it went on too long. And it went on way too long, as if we're supposed to sit there and absorb the moment and be in awe about the devastation that Alexa Bliss is going through. And, she did get enraged and she attacked Charlotte. And I tweeted this out too. I said, where was this rage during the match? Where was this aggressiveness during the match? Did it take a doll being torn up for you to show this aggression instead of just having it innately be there because, I don't know, you're in a championship match? So Alexa Bliss did get a piece of Charlotte, but Charlotte escapes, and then Alexa Bliss ends up for several minutes moping in the ring, going up the ramp, and then she apparently had some kind of tablet that's supposed to make you foam or froth at the mouth, and she tried it, and unfortunately she opened her mouth, and you could see it. It looks like a little Alka-Seltzer on her tongue, and she got a little bit of it, but I don't think as much as Vince would have envisioned in his mind. It was kind of weird, and the crowd was deadly silent. I mean, it was a morgue in there. That part I don't know if I can really fault them for, because what are they supposed to do? I mean, is there really an emotional attachment to Lily? No. But it's about Alexa here, and the storyline of Alexa is, where does she go now? Where does Alexa Bliss go now? What does she do with her character? To me, that is the most important thing out of this. Does she go deeper, darker, further? Or does she back off and maybe she starts to revert back to her old self? it's a heck of a conversation, and I'm sure we'll get more of an answer this coming Friday night on SmackDown. My guess, they're going deeper, darker, further, because you don't have her freak out over that and then have her go back for what reason. So that's my thought. This was weird. The chemistry wasn't there for most of the match. It did pick up towards the end, and give both women credit there. But ultimately, having Alexa Bliss lose to Charlotte, it's predictable. It's fine. I think Alexa was much hotter about a year ago when they should have struck, and they didn't. So now they get kind of the watered down version of what most people were intrigued with, which was Alexa Bliss when she first turned. All right, let's talk now about Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. Now, this was a good match. This is the match that I think most of us wanted at SummerSlam and didn't get, with the plan in mind that they're going to turn Becky heel. And the crowd generally gave the support for Becky in a 50-50 manner. It was a lot of dueling chants for EST and for Becky. It did seem indeed split 50-50. Pat McAfee nailed it. They weren't trying to skew what we're hearing. They weren't saying that, somewhat of a mixed reaction. And they didn't give us that kind of verbiage like they did with Roman, or they just ignored it altogether. They actually acknowledged it. So Pat McAfee, great job, which Pat McAfee does. I got to say, on a side note, Pat McAfee, while he was annoying as hell to me at first, and he didn't sound like a commentator, he sounded like a goofball, being way over energetic and just too much. I now miss the energy over on Raw. I think that Raw doesn't have the energy that SmackDown does. Michael Cole and Pat McAfee work really well together. And I would not break them up for anything. I really wouldn't. I enjoy thoroughly Pat McAfee. Even if he stumbles over his words, screws things up, and he did a couple of times. He couldn't remember how many days Roman had been champion, and little things. But you forget all that because his energy is so magnetic, and he's standing for most of the time he's commentating because he's so excited about presumably the matches that are going on. So just great stuff here by Pat. He had some good lines tonight. But all right, let's talk about the SmackDown Women's Championship, and then we'll get to the United States Championship, and then we'll end with the Universal. Okay. This was, again, as I said, really good. Bianca's hair continues to come into the equation, which is fine, I guess, even though you could say, well, why? It shouldn't, right? But we got a very, very good match. Becky doesn't look like she's lost a step. It was just flat out a great match. And Bianca is now having streaks of those. Bianca has reached that level where you can count on her. WWE can count on her to have that really good match with anybody. And that's a credit to Bianca herself, who put in the work, who feels like a star. Becky Lynch right now is on a journey to get people to hate her, and that's fine. I don't agree with how quickly it happened, but it happened, and fine, we'll go along with the ride. I thought this match was really well done. Some great false finishes. Just as Bianca is about to deliver the KOD, we got, and let's see how quickly they change that. I mean, KOD, they don't want to say death, right? Let's see how quickly somebody changes that. I'll just say that. Eventually it's going to be like, I don't know, something a lot softer, right? But I don't want to bring attention to it if nobody were noticed in WWE. But Sasha Banks did come back here. Sasha Banks came back, and look, I got to say, she's a distractingly attractive woman. And I know that I say time and again that I don't care about the attractiveness of a woman. I care about, at least on TV, right? When I'm watching wrestling, that is. Let's be very specific. Before I get myself in trouble, I really don't. To me, it's what's your character? Can I get behind you? What are your morals? Who are your friends? Why do you care what you're doing? What are you chasing? Basics that we should know. But I got to say, Sasha Banks is distractingly attractive, where to the point, the thing I hate to stroke her ego because she does have a big ego. You even saw it on the Broken Skull sessions where she was just obnoxious And it wasn't her being in character. This was just Mercedes being Mercedes, and I find her extremely obnoxious. And I do. She came across that way on Broken Skull Sessions, which, by the way, go check out Seth Rollins on Broken Skull. I got to do that too. Anyway, I hate to stroke her ego, but she's just distractingly attractive. I can't focus. As a straight guy, I'm like looking at her. I'm like, what? Like, what is she doing? Is she heel? Oh, wait, I don't know what. It's just the way it goes, guys. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I have my doubts. So anyway, she comes back and she does attack. She does attack Bianca. That makes sense. They reference the whole SummerSlam and how she couldn't compete. They didn't say why. I don't expect that to come anywhere near an answer. But Becky Lynch thought that she was maybe there to help her, and we had Sasha Banks attack Becky. That was interesting. I thought they were going to form some kind of quick little alliance, but they didn't, and they both ended up brawling. Eventually, Sasha Banks hit the backstabber on both of those women to stand tall, and that's exactly what she did. So, Sasha Banks is back. That's a big pickup for SmackDown. Another big blow for Raw, who just continues to slip down into the abyss of star power. But the saving grace, of course, is going to be the draft that is coming up very, very shortly for Monday Night Raw. I bet you they can't wait another second to get that draft so they can finally switch things up and get the pieces where they want them and have the network executives off their back, which I'm sure they are, and deservedly so. So we got, again, that was fun, but even the reaction of Bianca was, rather Sasha Banks coming back, was not as big as you would have imagined. It was just kind of ho-hum. I'm sitting there like, Columbus, can we do something? Columbus, can we just, I don't know, like pretend we care? You know, so that's the way I thought about that. But this, as I said, ended in a DQ with Sasha Banks interfering, and that allows the champion, Becky Lynch, to retain. So, all right, let's get to the United States Championship match that I really enjoyed. I did really enjoy this one too. I thought it was well done. I thought it was believable, hard hitting. The Jeff Hardy spots and the Jeff Hardy moments where you believed he could win were believable. I really enjoyed that piece of the match, that piece of the storytelling, where I thought Jeff was just going to be more or less of a rag doll there to get beaten up and eventually pinned by Damian Priest. Instead, we got moments that actually highlighted Jeff Hardy, made you believe he had a moment or two to capture the United States Championship, that you believed it was in peril. That was a lot of fun. We eventually did see the Swanton. Yes, Sheamus is being hilarious with his mocking of the crowd. Sheamus is doing such a good job, I got to say. But ultimately, Damian Priest does retain the United States Championship. I don't think anybody really had any doubt that this was going to be the case, given that that Damian Priest is on the rise. They're trying to build new stars. They know what Sheamus is. Jeff Hardy's got a foot and a half out the door, so it makes sense that they try to help build that new star, that new talent of Damian Priest. So no problems there. All right, let's take a quick break for the sponsor of this show, and then we will get to the Roman Reigns and Finn Balor main event right after this. Guys, go check out the Midwest Marks Wrestling Podcast. They review all content AEW and some WWE. The Midwest Marks Podcast releases several shows a week, reviewing AEW Dynamite, Rampage, and recapping the need to know on Dark/Elevation. You can find them wherever podcasts are, and new episodes released within 12 hours of shows airing to provide you, the listener, with the best knowledge and insight on all things elite. So check out the Midwest Marks Wrestling Podcast.
Welcome back to the WWE Podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
All right, let's continue on here, and let's get to the main event. Let's get to that good old main event with Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns defeating Finn Balor for the Universal Championship. How long is Roman Reigns' entrance, by the way? Has anybody timed it? It's several minutes. He probably has entrances longer than some people have matches many nights. Deservedly so, but his entrance is sometimes even painfully long. Maybe that's the point. But Roman Reigns here makes his way to the ring. The Demon Finn Balor, who also in his own right had a really good entrance. I enjoyed the hell out of his entrance. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was well done. Attention to detail. Whoever does the artwork on Finn Balor's body is a damn genius. You could put a gun to my head. I would never be able to do it. I'd be dead within seconds. But it was just such a great look for Finn Balor. You would assume the demon is gone away now with what happened. But a couple things about this match. Yes, it was exactly what we thought. Very well done. Great near falls. Physical. Roman Reigns putting on the mask to go into the crowd was, to me, hilarious. And I'll take it. I'm going to try to take it mostly as hilarious and not as stupidity. And what I mean by stupidity is if he put it on only because he's concerned about getting COVID. I know people say, oh, he's an immunocompromised system, right? If he's that concerned about it, a mask, which was a surgical mask. By the way, surgical masks provide you zero protection against COVID. People think they do. They don't. Those droplets of air and COVID that could travel in the air easily pass through the surgical masks, which is why people say get K95 masks, right? Like you either get the right mask or don't. People wear cloth and all that stuff provides seriously zero protection. Anyway, not going to get into that. The point is, if he was actually only doing that because he's concerned for his safety, it's stupidity, because not only is that mask simply ineffective, but also because you're in a building, an enclosed building with 15,000 other people who are already breathing. You think just because you're standing 6 feet away from them that it's going to make a difference whether or not, if there's COVID in the air, you're going to get it? And I'm sure he's vaccinated, right? So I'm going to go with that purpose is not the purpose, and rather because he was just trying to be a total D-bag. And Pat McAfee covered for him by saying, I think it was Pat, either Pat or Michael, said that he didn't want to breathe the same air as these people. That's a great, perfect way to put a reason behind Roman Reigns wearing a mask. It's the first time we've seen a wrestler wear a mask. So that was interesting to see. Paul Heyman gave it to him. And I'll go with that, because if it's for the other reason, there's zero logic to that. Just like I gotta say, right? So if you're that concerned that people are breathing out COVID, well, you got 15,000 chances to get it, and you going into the crowd is not going to, put you at more risk. I gotta say. I mean, it may put you at more risk for other things that you can contract from being close to people, but we're told COVID is 6 feet. But everyone's breathing. 15,000 people are breathing at the same time. All right. I think I've made my point. But hey, that was hilarious. We'll go with the just being a jerk thing. And then the ending is interesting. Right? Like we had the crowd come alive. I think they wanted to see Extreme Rules. And we actually got that in this match, which is funny that this name of the pay-per-view is Extreme Rules, yet we only had one Extreme Rules match. Everything else was a normal match. But I digress. So we got this demon here who ended up getting attacked by the Usos, Finn Balor, and then getting put down. And that's where the heartbeat started of the demon. The music came over, almost Bray Wyatt-like, and some thumps were heard, which Finn Balor reacted as on his stomach as heartbeats. Happened a few times. That resurrected the demon. And then he went on a absolute rampage, destroying everybody in sight. People threw tables, a chair to Roman Reigns. He was going up to the top rope to do the coup de grace. And as lady luck would have it, on Roman Reigns' side, the top rope breaks. Now, by design, yes, this was not a botched finish. This was absolutely by design, which is fine. I will say Finn Balor hung up on the ropes a little bit too long, more than I would like. Right, I think that having him hang on the ropes for that long, I was thinking something's wrong. Something's not right. Somebody's returning, whatever. But the top rope broke, and then the lights came back to normal. Finn Balor feigned a knee injury. Well, he didn't feign it. He, in storyline, had a knee injury. Roman took advantage. He ends up hitting the spear for the victory. and Roman Reigns retains the Universal Championship by divine intervention is probably how they will label it. And I'm fine with it. I don't think that the Balor character was worthy of defeating Roman Reigns. People may disagree with me on that, but what we have with Roman Reigns is something special right now. It does not come along often, and Finn Balor will be just fine. He'll be just fine. We'll all forget about this in a few months, and Finn Balor is going to be... he's essentially Teflon at this point anyway. He's so damn good. I'm not worried about him at all. So, there's just a bizarre, wacky pay-per-view. Do you guys agree with me here, or am I just making this up? I just feel like it was a very, very weird pay-per-view. Good in some spots, bad in others, confusing in a lot of it, and silence in other parts of it for a good chunk of the pay-per-view. So, way to go, Columbus. I did enjoy your thank you, Lily chants, but outside of that, you guys were tough on the old ears, because it's amazing how much a crowd can add to a match by just simply reacting to it. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It felt like I was back, I have to say, in some of the matches, like I was back in the Performance Center, Capitol Wrestling Center, listening to nothing with empty seats and hearing the ring and the wrestlers calling their match in the ring. It really made me have nightmares about those days that hopefully are all the way behind us and never to come back ever again. But it did give me flashbacks to that nightmare. So I did want to say that. So thank you, Columbus. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening here. Again, shout out to the Botch Guy. If you haven't gone to check him out on YouTube yet, go do yourself a favor. Check out the Botch Guy on YouTube. Support him by hitting subscribe, like his videos, all that great stuff. And we'll, of course, get him on the show hopefully next time. And maybe even sooner, but probably not until the next pay-per-view, which, again, class, falls on a Thursday. Really more for me than for you, because I'm going to forget. So, all right. Well, guys, don't forget, tomorrow I'll be with Anthony DeMarco to cover a What If. I will then also be doing the Raw review. And then we will be off to the races with the mailbag and other stuff coming later this week. So quite a bit more content to come. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know I did. As always, I'll talk to you next time.